of this tournament are still alive with Sphinx's Revelation.
Absolutely.
I think that as the format has diversified a little, basically people are attacking you from too many angles at this point.
Yeah, we said that before. Blue Light Control, great in a known metagame, tougher in an unknown metagame. And we'll see how known this is. Keith is on the play. He started with a Temple. VanMeter having the best start in his deck. That's going to be a turn 1 Elvish Mystic as he tries to get one of those early threats like a Domri down before the control wall is put up by Keith.
Yeah, the idea here for CVM is to try and stick some sources of card advantage to basically outcard the blue deck, which sounds ridiculous on its face, but it's something that the Jund Monsters deck is certainly capable of.
Yeah, it wants to one of these, basically any of its threats, if they go unanswered, can pose a really big problem. And we see right now Chris kind of looking at the situation. He can Temple here. He can also Shock to go for a turn 2 Courser of Crewfix. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and pick the latter of those.
Yep, and wants to, again, get his card advantage engine online. This is the card that you actually would prefer to play on a turn when you still have a land drop to make. It looks like it wouldn't have mattered here since he did not find a land on top anyway.
Yeah, but he does sneak it past the Dissolve in Keith's hand, so now Keith cycles an Azorius Charm on the end step there, plays a third land, and passes back. Some knowledge there for VanMeter with that Azorius Charm. We saw earlier today players swinging Elvish Mystics into Blue White Control, basically daring Blue White players to actually still have Azorius Charm in their deck list.
Okay, that's fair. So we know that Keith does have it. Now, to be fair, Azorius Charm is not necessarily a 4 of either. Like, that could have been his 1.
Right.
So CVM actually still kind of has to play that guessing game.
Yeah, in straight blue white, we still see some number. In the 3-color decks, I would say, you know, it's probable they don't have Azorius Charm anymore. And you see here, Keith has cut his Azorius Charms down to 3 even in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a card that its stock has slowly gotten worse, I think. And you can see why just by looking at this board state right now. The real threats here are the Courser Crewfix, which is in play, generating its value with or without its attacks. And the Xenaghost, which is currently on top, but it's coming.
Yeah, and Chris VanMeter not, he's doing the exact same thing there. He swings Elvish Mystic and Courser of Crewfix right into the open mana. Keith, no Azorius Charm, he goes ahead and takes 3s down to 17.
Keith looking to stabilize here. Now he has this Jace, but cannot cast it currently. But even if he could, this stemming the bleeding in terms of damage is, again, not actually fighting the battle that CVM wants to fight.
Yeah, a lot of times what it is that VanMeter and the Jund deck will continue to make threats and demand answers to each of them. And once like the Monsters deck gets 2 or 3 decks down the board, it's very hard for blue-white to come back. They basically have to answer a lot of these threats 1 for 1 with cards like Detention Sphere, maybe Supreme Verdict. Their one catch-all is if they play Fated Retribution. That's a card, however, that I do not believe is in Keith's list.
I do not see any. Nope. 0 Fated Retribution, main or side. So CVM does not have to worry about that one. Not that he knows that.
Swing for 4 from Chris VanMeter. That puts Keith down to 13. Keith has yet to play a spell other than that one Azorius Charm, and he's falling dangerously behind here.
He is. And CVM actually up on cards as well as on board. He has gone 2 cards deeper, I believe, with that Courser now. And sits with his Xenaghost, but chooses not to cast it. I think he smells counter magic here.
Yeah, there was a counter spell there. VanMeter went for a Scavenging Ooze, and Keith kind of priced into dissolving. It seems like he's priced into dissolving whatever Chris went for that turn.
You're right. I believe he does have to. Honestly, CVM could have just passed there if he thinks that he's dealing with just counter magic.
Yeah.
I mean, his board is not especially scary, but it's still a pretty reasonable clock. It's a 4-turn clock, and that's even if Keith were to fire off a mini Revelation, he doesn't dig himself out of that.
Right.
So I think that CVM knows he can basically force Keith to make a move here. And Scavenging Ooze it's one of those weird threats that it's kind of in between. It's scary enough that Keith has to dissolve it, but I don't think he's happy to.
I mean, I think Keith dissolves it because that puts 4 damage up, 4 power up to 6. And it's like, well, 6 is too fast.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, VanMeter's got to be thrilled to trade a Scavenging Ooze for a dissolve. That's, it's not a Storm Breath, it's not a Planeswalker.
Sure. And I said before, actually, I missed that Mutavault down there, which he had just stuck into play. So yeah, he actually has a 2-turn clock right now, and that Scavenging Ooze would have not actually changed it, but it would have maintained a 2-turn clock through one piece of interaction.
Well, right now it's a 3. It's 6. It has 6 power, so it's technically 3, but being at 1 is not really a very comfortable place.
True.
We see Temple of Abandon VanMeter, no interest in the Pelucranos. He's going to go ahead and ship that, and that seems like an upgrade. He flips Domri off the top.
Yep. Pelucranos, big burly monster. No disrespect to Pelucranos, World Eater, but not what he's looking for right here. And Domri, on the other hand, that's one of those sources of card advantage, as we were saying, and a very scary one for the blue-white deck.
Yeah, well, there's so much utility here, right? Corsive Krufix gives you card draw utility. Scavenging Ooze is very cheap, can grow. I suppose Stormbreath Dragon, no utility, but it gets a pass just because of how fast it is and how much damage it can be. And then, these Planeswalkers. So it's like each of these threats, they all produce value, almost without attacking.
Sure. Yeah. They produce value either by drawing cards or just killing people.
Right.
That's a utility all its own in my book.
All right, well, on end step, Keith does make one of those mini revelations you were talking about. It's a rev for 2, puts himself back up to 9. Now with a full hand, he's going to have to deal with a board of 2 Mystics and a Courser and a Domri Rod on top. And probably the best way to deal with it is to ignore it all. He's going to tap out for an Elspeth Sun's Champion.
Mm-hmm. Elspeth is a start, for sure.
Yeah, opens the door to things like Stormbreath Dragon.
Opens the door to, it opens the door, but then again, I think that door was open.
Yeah, it's already
Keith,
there.
Yeah, Keith could not afford to be reactive here because he was slowly getting beat down. Not even that slowly at this point. Yes, tapped out now, Keith is exposed to Stormbreath, to Rakdos Return, to Gore Clan Rampager, to any number of things. But if he does not fall to one of those cards this turn, if he untaps with the Planeswalker in play, he's in fantastic shape.
Yeah.
So it's a risk that I don't think he minds taking at all here.
Yep. He knows there's a Domri and a Xenagos in VanMeter's hand, both of which are pretty potent threats, and VanMeter could make both of them.
He could. With Xenagos, let's see, he could not cast Xenagos, activate Mutavault, and attack with all 5 then of his threats. So I believe the biggest dent he could put on that Xenagos just by shoving would be knocking it to 3. Which doesn't really make much headway, and would cost him some elves.
Yeah, I don't know if he can kill the Elspeth this turn. He can certainly drop her to 1 with the Stormbreath, which means that she can't untap and reprisal the dragon.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you have Stormbreath, that seems like the play to me. Does he have it? I don't see one. We know about the Planeswalkers, and I think he is deciding between his Planeswalkers. He could actually cast both.
No, he does have Stormbreath Dragon.
He does have it. Okay.
Yeah,
now, Stormbreath actually limits his options. Then, if you cast Stormbreath, that's his play.
Right.
And I think he is.
We can go untapped land. He can go Stormbreath Domri actually, and he goes and shocks for Overgrown Tomb, taking 1 there down. Taking 2, gaining 1.
With that would tap his elves. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of piecing through his plays along with him. So, Stormbreath Dragon, attack Elspeth to 1. That's not a play that the CVM minds making necessarily. In addition to that attack, I was looking to see if he could use Domri to fight a soldier and force through additional damage that way. But I don't believe there are any worthwhile lines that involve that.
So he's going to start with Xenagos here, actually. He can go Xenagos Stormbreath as opposed to Domri Stormbreath, thanks to Xenagos' plus ability if he prefers.
Okay. He can actually cast all 3, right? The Xenagos makes 3 mana, and that gives him 8 total for Stormbreath and Domri.
Gives him 7 total, because Courser doesn't tap.
You are right.
So I thought about you. I was like, can he play everything? No, he's short.
Yeah, we're still
just
1
barely.
short. A lot of math. I'm glad I have a bona fide mathematician to keep me straight here.
That Courser doesn't tap.
Yeah. Courser does everything else. So
he feels like he makes mana.
He's made enough mana this game, I think, in his own way.
It's weird. He seems like he should be such a ramp card, but he's actually just a card drawer. He's not a ramp spell, despite all the text on him that says land. And now 3 mana made there. He's going to make Domri.
All right.
So it looks like no Stormbreath this turn.
Okay. Looking to set up a turn in which we can one-shot Elspeth, I suppose. Well, actually, and if he gets to untap with Xenagos, he may be able to make enough mana to play Stormbreath and Monstrous it in the same turn. I'm not sure how far away he is from that. Looks like he would currently be 2 mana short.
Well, this is an interesting line he's chosen. So instead of plussing the Domri, he minused it, had Courser of Krufix fight off a soldier token, then activates Mutavault and swings the team.
Okay.
I think presumably at Elspeth.
Yeah. So now Keith gets to make a decision. How much does he value getting rid of those Elvish Mystics?
Yeah, he can trade. Yep, all at Elspeth. He can trade, kill both Elvish Mystics, and put Elspeth down to 1. He can
also trade with Mutavault.
Mutavault, put Elspeth down to 1. Or he can protect Elspeth and put her to, if he's willing to trade less, he can keep Elspeth as high as 3.
Sure. And this is not a question with an easy answer, I don't think. I would be inclined to get the material off the board, yeah, and that looks like what Keith is going to do.
It depends if he has Supreme Verdict, right? If he has Verdict, then he takes the Mutavault off.
Yeah, sure, yeah. If you're choosing which material to get off, then yes. My thinking basically is that the difference between a Xenagos at 1 and an Elspeth at 1 and an Elspeth at 3 is not that substantial.
There was also the potential there, which I would have liked to see him make. What if instead he just chumps a 2-power creature, leaves a soldier back, kills Domri with the second soldier,
sure.
and then lets Elspeth go to 1. Doesn't kill anything, but he gets the Domri instead of the 2 Elvish Mystics.
You're right. That actually does seem better. It looks like Aetherling was the game plan there.
New plan,
so, yeah.
resolve Aetherling race.
So bigger fish to fry than Domri. We're going for the face. And this Aetherling, now in addition to doing Storm Breath clock math and what can we do with Storm Breath to try and kill Keith, now we get to do Aetherling clock math and try and figure out how far Keith is from killing CVM.
Well, Keith is actually still 3 turns away from killing CVM, and I'm not convinced yet that he can survive for 3 turns.
I am also not convinced, although I haven't seen Keith's hand.
Right.
And, you mentioned earlier he's really 1 Supreme Verdict away from well stabilizing this game.
Exactly. So, and now with this, so the Aetherling's good. It gives him a different angle. I still don't know if it actually if it helps him with the current scenario.
No, it does not solve the Storm Breath problem for 1, which is not even a problem Keith knows about yet.
Domri's gonna go ahead and plus does. It finds Blood Crypt, doesn't.
I was like, well, come on, look at it. It's already there, yeah.
Yeah, I had to meet you. I was like, why didn't he? Oh.
Yeah.
That's got to be a bad feeling. Plus, he's just looking over Jack, like, plus Domri.
Courser of Krufix does all sorts of weird things. We saw him earlier. He played a Temple of Abandon, just casually put his card to the bottom. I already knew what it was.
Coolest thing I've seen with Courser of Krufix. I've had one against me when I've had a Docker Mystic in play in Limited. That's sweet.
Okay.
Every time they get a card, you're like, yeah, we mill for 1.
Nice. Just save some time. I only need to think about half of this equation right now.
And there we go. There's the Stormbreath Dragon that was in VanMeter's hand.
Okay. And I suspect this is also...
I wonder where it's going.
This went to the head.
That went to the face. Keith goes to 5. Okay. I mean, Keith declared that he wanted to race, right?
Yeah.
Elspeth can't use the reprisal ability.
So on the board, Keith is dead next turn to the Stormbreath Dragon.
I think it's a heads-up play by VanMeter. Think about the cards that actually answer Stormbreath Dragon. It's pretty much Elspeth and Supreme Verdict, right?
Yes.
We know that Elspeth can't do it.
Another Elspeth from hand would do it.
Right. Second, it has to be from hand.
Yeah.
We're already pretty sure with how this game played out that Keith does not have a Supreme Verdict.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption at this point.
So just going to the face and challenging him to answer Stormbreath, I think a pretty good board read there for Chris VanMeter.
Yep, I agree. How about Revelation? Does that do anything? He would be able to Revelation for 4 or 5 if he plays the land.
Yeah, well, Revelation's pretty bad against a monstrous stability on Stormbreath, though. Stormbreath undoes all the work you do with Revelation.
True. What you would basically have to do there would be hope that CVM... Well, CVM would use the monstrous ability. You take the trigger and then cast Revelation.
Yeah. And unless CVM can deal the last point of damage on the attack, that actually does work. If he swings for more than 5, that no longer works because then...
Right, and actually it looks like he would. So I was just kind of checking to see if that's a relevant thing. I don't think it is. He has a Jace in hand. I believe we're going to see him Jace and go digging. Well, I said that.
Looks like he's pumping Aethling enough to kill the Xenagos.
Okay.
1 token falls to Courser of Krufix. Keith is going to blink out his Aetherling and then Supreme Verdict.
Okay, has it.
I wonder how long it was there for.
I don't know.
makes soldiers. Aetherling comes back in, and well, now things are great for Keith.
Yeah, things got much better.
I mean, I just assumed he didn't have the verdict because it seemed like the verdict was so good the whole game. So he either drew it or he's a far more patient man than I am.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the latter, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Then he showed.
I mean, like, if you think about the last couple of turns, the board looked really grim for Keith, but he wasn't dead.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real argument for just holding it until you
I'm impressed.
absolutely must pull the trigger.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm impressed as well. Again, assuming that he was holding it. We are not sure here in the booth, but yeah, it was either quite the top deck or quite the heads-up play from Keith.
All right, well, Chris now with just a lone Domri, he's going to cast Pelucranos World Eater here, but against an active Elspeth and active Aetherling, there is little VanMeter can do, and Keith should be able to clean this up in, well, I would think 2 turns.
Mm-hmm. The Aetherling takes 3. In order to clean it up in fewer turns than that, he's going to have to get aggressive with those soldiers, but he doesn't have a good reason to right now, so he can sit on his counterspell.
Yeah, he can put the soldier, I mean, maybe on the last turn he can swing all the soldiers for the last points. He can also not, and that would be fine too.
Mm-hmm. And he also gets to make the choice of whether or not he cares about Domri here.
His hand is set up for this game. He has Jace, Dissolve, and Celestial Flare all in his hand.
Those are powerful cards.
I mean, that's an answer to everything VanMeter's doing.
Sure does. He has an answer to the creature on board, answer to the next big spell. He could
and card draw.
Yeah. He could get rid of the Domri just by jamming with his soldiers, it looks like. He certainly could do it with Aetherling. That would cost him some time, but time is a thing he has all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, how you choose to win at this point in the game with a blue-white control deck is really kind of your leisure, your choice.
For sure.
The game's under control.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, having said that, I certainly don't begrudge Keith to take his time and consider the options. It's a bit of a virtue, I would say, to play with caution when you're ahead.
He's got to be a little careful here. He wants to still make the Aetherling unblockable. If VanMeter reads him for Celestial Flare, he can block with a Mutavault and a Pelucranos. I mean, I suppose Aetherling could still just become a 3/6.
And then Aetherling doesn't really care about that. Again, it buys him time. I missed this the stomping ground up here, so
Aetherling goes at VanMeter. We'll see. I'm not sure where all these. I think it's the Aetherlings going at VanMeter, soldiers going at Domri.
Okay. Yeah. So with this mana up here, the stomping ground, he can actually monstrous Pelucranos for 1 as well. So okay. I would assume then they're all going at Domri.
All going at Domri. Okay.
Because if it's just the soldiers, he can fight over that in a number of ways.
All right, Elspeth is plussed. 3 more soldiers brings the count up to 6. Keith blinks out his Aetherling so that he can have it on VanMeter's turn. I imagine he'll just keep passing.
Yeah, I see no reason not to. He actually could play Jace here. He has enough mana to play Jace and still leave up Dispel. Or not Dispel, Dissolve.
I'm going to play Hallowed Fountain, tapped, and bring back Aetherling.
Sad not to.
Let's see here. VanMeter just playing off the top of the deck.
Yeah, not a lot of live draws, I wouldn't think.
Running Storm Breaths.
Yes, running Storm Breaths. Does he have Rakdos Returns in his main deck?
They're just in the board.
Yeah, I know like most lists do not, but...
Yep, his also does not. He has 2 in the sideboard, 0 in the main.
Okay. So, actually, yeah, running Storm Breaths, I believe, is all there is, right?
Yep. And Chris decides there's less than even that.
Yes.
So
well, yeah. Once you miss the first one, I think you're a shot. you have to, in order for them to run, the first one has to show up.
All right. So game 1 goes to Keith Rong, a game that put him on his back foot, but thanks to a really well-played Supreme Verdict, was able to get full value off that against Chris.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with his patience there, as you said. Like, I would have fired off that Supreme Verdict the turn before that, and the turn before that, and I think maybe the turn before that too.
the first turn you could cast.
Yeah, I don't like cluttered boards. I mean, if I'm getting a 3 for 1, that's enough value for me, I think.
My opponent has creatures that are drawing him cards and 2 planeswalkers.
Yes.
I kind of want to kill things.
Exactly.
I'm getting uncomfortable with the situation.
One of my favorite things in Magic is drawing a card one of my least favorite things in Magic is when my opponent draws a card.
Right.
So if I can stop that, I would pull the trigger on it.
All right. Well, you mentioned in Chris's sideboard he does have Rakdos' returns. That's true. 2 Rakdos' returns. He has a fair amount of tools for this matchup. He has Golgari Charm that will help him regenerate through verdicts, blow up detention spheres. He has 3 Mist Cutter Hydras. Those are also excellent for the matchup. If he chooses to, he has a Vraska he could use. Sometimes you see that as a way to kill detention spheres. Not always.
I think I like Vraska in this matchup. Yeah, it deals with detention sphere, it deals with Elspeths.
Yeah,
and
it's good.
Yeah, in a weird roundabout way, it's a threat. It creates a clock in a way. There's a lot of flexibility with that card. I could see him bringing it in. Keth, on the other hand, Keth has Keth has a Faded Retribution. I said earlier that he did not, but I just missed it. There it is. So he has 1 Faded Retribution. He has 2 Archangel of Thune, which that's a card that I think generally these decks want to bring in just in the dark. He's not in the dark, but like that. Generally, these control decks want to become more preactive and kind of bring a new threat in response to their opponent's post-board answers. So I expect him to bring 2 Archangels, the Faded Retribution, and some of these others I'm not so sure on.
Well, before he brings in the Archangel, if he wants a way to win the game, I would also look at maybe instead using Jace Memory Adept. I'm a little worried about the Archangels. I don't feel like it doesn't match up well against a lot of the creatures in VanMeter's deck. It doesn't block a Stormbreath Dragon, doesn't really interact with a Pelucranos. It can go aggressive, but I almost wonder whether he'd rather just go aggressive with a Planeswalker in the matchup.
Yeah, I think he does actually want Jace Memory Adept as well.
I suppose it's not an either-or situation.
Yeah,
it may just be an all-of-the-above situation.
I think you want as many whammies as you can fit. Archangel, if I am in Keth's spot, I'm bringing these cards in. These Archangels for sure. But then again, I'm a brawler, you know. I want to be attacking. You're right there. It doesn't stop Stormbreath, but it races it. The creatures that it doesn't just like roadblock. It actually you change the clock immensely.
It races Pelucranos. Stormbreath it can race. Depends on whether Chris has 7 mana. Sometimes Stormbreath just goes monster and then wins. It's like you might still have to kill it anyway. Cards I'm excited about out of VanMeter sideboard as well. Celestial Flare and Negate. Both are pretty exciting in the matchup.
Out of Keth Rong sideboard.
Out of Keth's sideboard.
The Celestial Flare for sure. That's 1 in the board in addition to the 1 in his main deck. We saw Stormbreath Dragon cause serious problems that game, and you want to bolster your defenses as best you can against that card. So he's going to bring in 2 Celestial Flares and a Faded Retribution almost certainly to bump his number of answers to that card up. Yeah,
Mist Cutter Hydra. He also has to expect that there's Mist Cutter Hydras coming in too.
You mentioned Negate, of course, as a response to Domri, to Xenagos, to Rakdos returns, which he has to suspect. I don't dislike Negate here, but I would caution against being too reactive in this case.
All right, well, we're underway with Game 2. This is Chris VanMeter versus Keth Rong for the first spot in our top 8, what we predict will be the first spot in the top 8. VanMeter has the Turn 1 Elvish Mystic on the play. He did last game as well. But now he's on the play, he has free reign to try to stick, once again, an early threat. We saw last game he had a Courser of Crufix. We'll see what he can land here.
Does he have the Domri? No, it looks like Scavenging Ooze.
Not have the Turn 2 Domri, but Ooze is good.
Yeah, Ooze is still fine. He's going to put the pressure on here.
All right, and we see what the cards he's brought in. It looks like he has both Golgari Charm and Dreadbore brought in this matchup.
Okay. Dreadbore was in the
main.
In the main, he did not cut. It's an answer to Elspeth, which I think you still have to keep as many of those as you can afford to.
And Mist Cutter for 3. That's the last creature really threat in VanMeter's hand. He's gonna go ahead and now crash for 5 damage. I was going to say, Induin is a possible Azorius Charm, and it does eat the ooze.
No big deal. I mean, if it's there, it's there. You have to draw it out eventually. That Mist Cutter, it was totally safe to attack there. Yeah, it could not be Azorius Charms. Keth Rong did not have mana for Celestial Flare, nor could he have actually used it there. It would have just gotten the Scavenging Ooze. So.
What I like about the line that VanMeter has chosen is even next turn, if he plays Scavenging Ooze, he will have the mana up to deal with a turn 4 Supreme Verdict. So that was my initial fear of dropping everything, as I was say, you're going to lose to Verdict if you do that. But even...
Yeah, I mean, that is always the fear when you're just curving out.
Right.
On that last turn, he could afford to jam his Mist Cutter into play because he always had one untap step before Keith even got to Supreme Verdict.
Exactly.
Mana.
So like right here, even if when he recasts the ooze, he'll still have 2 up for the charm. So he doesn't have to have that worry.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's gonna.
I feel like if he manages to fog through one Supreme Verdict, he's in fantastic shape in this game. He's looking at 4 damage this turn and then another 6. He's basically going to put Keith in a spot where like he needs to have one of his then 3 Supreme Verdicts, and that's it. I don't think he has outs other than that.
Yeah. So a swing for 4 there from VanMeter. He puts Keith down to 12. Does not play Scavenging Ooze, instead opting to leave up that Golgari Charm. He did play a Temple that turn. And Keith, with no Verdicts mana anyway, he plays a Temple of his own, leaving up Dissolve. He has both Dissolve and Sphere in his hand. But no answer as of yet to the Mistcutter Hydra.
It's interesting to me that Chris basically chose 1 damage over casting Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, actually, the weird thing about that situation is there's no way to cast Scavenging Ooze without completely telegraphing Golgari Charm. So it's possible that he just wants to swing to represent that he doesn't have it.
Swings for 3 more. That drops Rong down to 8. And to be honest, the clock he has is fairly sufficient.
Sure. Yeah, he's not under any pressure to make a different play. So yeah, he can afford to wait to cast his spells in the best spots. He just like last game manages to draw Dissolve out with Scavenging Ooze. Scavenging is one of those weird cards you don't want it to resolve, but it feels like a waste of a counter spell.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Keith countered it. I felt like if Keith he does have a Supreme Verdict, and if he's already committed to casting the Verdict, you'd almost soon want another creature on the board. That creature doesn't really change the clock at all. But he did dissolve the Scavenging Ooze there, and now he has a choice of a lot of control spells to play.
That is interesting. It's possible that he's really valuing the Scry. He may be looking for something in particular. Okay, and he looks like he does read Chris for that Golgari Charm. So he doesn't choose to sweep here.
Yeah, instead he's just looking. Looks like he's going to hold back and rev for 2.
Okay. Yeah, if he lets Scavenging Ooze resolve that last turn and then goes for Supreme Verdicts, kind of the level 0 play there, he's not dead on board at that point. He's going to fall to 2 on board, but he is incredibly vulnerable to a lot of cards that he knows Chris has in his deck. Yeah, he loses at that point to Xenagos, Mistcutter, Rakdos Return, Stormbreath Dragon, probably a couple others I'm forgetting. So I think I can understand him being very, very careful about that.
Yeah. He does mini rev for 2 after he goes to 4 to go back up to 6. And as you see here, a Celestial Flare was drawn for Keith. So he's starting to stabilize. If he can get rid of that Elvish Mystic, then he can force VanMeter to sacrifice the Mistcutter Hydra.
Yeah, that's a big Celestial Flare. Now, I talked about telegraphing your tricks. If you Detention Sphere an Elvish Mystic here, I'm pretty sure a player of Chris's caliber is gonna smell you out there. But there may not be much he can do about it.
Right. Chris is just it looks like what Chris is doing, so he's being very conservative with his damage. He's just playing Protect the Mistcutter Hydra. Now the danger of that, of course, that Keith it's possible that Keith just like drops an Elspeth. That's how I think Chris would be punished for playing the game this way.
Well, you can beat that with Golgari Charm too, just by sweeping the tokens.
Right. So he plays the Verdict. The Golgari Charm regenerates. Xenagos, the Reveler's played for Chris, and he's going to go ahead and go for lethal here. And by playing Xenagos, making a Satyr, Celestial Flare takes care of Elvish Mystic. Keith drops to 1 life.
Yeah, that's rough. That's not what you want to trade your Celestial Flare for.
Only out is Land Fated Retribution here, I believe. Or Verdict's Land Sphere.
Yes, that would do it too.
And that's what he's got.
What he's got. All right.
Verdict Land Sphere.
Okay.
Keith's at 1. Does Chris have any haste damage? Another Xenagos, a Storm Breath, a Mistcutter.
A lot of outs here.
He does not.
No, he does not. He has Domri to go digging, and looks like a Mutavault.
Well, if he finds Mistcutter here, he can Mistcutter for 1.
Oh, there we go.
Does not hit.
The mightiest Mistcutter. Yeah, misses.
And so now Chris's hand just 2 Dreadbores, and it may be that Keith has stabilized. We'll see. It may be that he doesn't have an answer to the Mutavault either. Yeah, he just has Land Detention Sphere. That Mutavault's going to kill him.
Yep. He can represent answers, but it's not like Chris has better things to do than see if he kills him. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus for Domri doesn't hit.
Yeah. Now Chris drew Rakdos Return. He's in this weird spot now where he has to try and decide between Rakdos returning or attacking with Mutavault, returning for 1. You have to worry about gaining life from Sphinx's Revelation.
All right, so if Keith has a Revelation, it's a Rev for 4.
Yeah.
Your Rakdos' return is for 3. Keith would be at 2 and would have presumably a pretty good card in his hand. Keith wouldn't net many cards, but he'd get to pick which one he nets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course, we know that it doesn't matter, and whatever he does is going to be good enough. But he does have to take the time to decide which one's better in the vacuum there.
Makes the right call there. Or one of them, the Mutavault, swings across for 2, and we are on to game 3 between Chris VanMeter and Keith Rong.
So we saw Chris keep his Dreadbores. We saw Golgari Charm, and we saw Rakdos return.
And Mistcutter.
And Mistcutter. So we knew, and we suspected we were going to see most of those cards. So post-board, Chris has really mixed up all the angles that he is attacking from.
Yeah, it seems like the vanilla creatures are kind of where he's cut things. Like, you don't see any Gorklan Rampager, and I don't imagine they're still in the deck at this point. Other than that, he may have just shaved some numbers in other places. Possibly a couple mana creatures have been boarded out in this matchup.
Yeah, he has the full package of 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Sylvan Caryatid. Those are a bit of a liability.
Yeah, Mystic's probably too good to cut. You probably start at the Caryatids.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, pre-board he can stick his engines. You know, he can stick Courser, he can stick Domri, start generating a little value, but even with those going, he still has to win in the combat step. And post-board, he doesn't really have to do that. Rakdos returns can close out on their own. They can open up avenues where he is free to attack and not have to worry about possible interaction that Keith could have, which he certainly has a lot of. So
yeah,
that diversity really paid off for him that game.
Yeah, and I think it's that diversity that really helps Chris. So it's like, it seems to me that what he's doing is he's just playing each of these value generating cards, and Keith's playing defense, right? Keith's trying to counter or remove or answer each of these value generating cards before any of them get out of hand, and hopefully resolve a Revelation at some point. And if he does that, then he's good. But
yes, basically has to Revelation there to stabilize. And VanMeter kept his Dreadbores, so what I was actually about to say was, what would have been actually fantastic that game was Archangel of Thu. It blocks a Mistcutter, races, and it stops Mistcutter from attacking and then races, so would have been a sweet card to jam there. Of course, CVM still has all these Dreadbores. So,
right, he had 2 Dreadbores at the end of the game.
Yeah. And I think that's actually, that's wise on CVM's part to keep in a little insurance there for situations like that. Yeah, he doesn't know exactly what's coming, but he has to suspect that Keith is going to throw some curveballs at him.
Yeah, some sort of creature post-board. It'll be interesting to see whether or not VanMeter actually is still playing all the Dreadbores for Game 3. He didn't really see any additional creatures out of Keith that game.
True. I mean, I don't know how much he wants to mix it up. Like, he most likely, it looks like he has 2 Rakdos returns, 2 Golgari Charms, 3 Mistcutters. That's 7 slots already. The Vraska is 8.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know how many more slots.
Yeah.
Right.
It really just depends on what fits and what he decided was he could afford to cut. Looking at his main deck, I think the 1 Mizium Mortars I think is the easiest cut. And then in his creature base, I know we said the Elvish Mystic probably too important to cut. Obviously your Storm Breaths are your clutch, your Scavenging Oozes are fantastic as a follow-up to Supreme Verdict, so they're a good top deck late. That leaves Gorklan Rampager, which is a little loose, but is actually a little, it gets better as you bring Mistcutter in. So you have more protection creatures that you don't have to worry about getting blown out by something when you use it. And it's an easy answer to Elspeth. Just whatever you have in play, attack Elspeth Rampager.
Right.
So may cut that. He may have cut that. He may have cut his Pelucranoses, some of them. He may have cut his Coursers. They're a little slow. Really, we have no way of knowing what threats he decided were the least effective, because there are a couple that are kind of tied in the middle there.
So you're on to Game 3. This one puts Keith back on the play. He starts with 2 lands, no effects, and for the 3rd game, Chris does have his turn 1 Elvish Mystic. We'll see if he can get that turn 2 Domri that's really good in the matchup. This time Keith's at the ready with a negate.
Yeah, that Domri will not be very effective here. You mentioned that you thought Keith would bring in negate. I was apprehensive about that, but it looks real good here.
Yeah, I know that, and this is a matchup when I play the blue-white control deck that I like negate against. It's not that there are that many cards to negate, it's that the cards, Chris's best cards are answered by negate.
The Planeswalkers and then the Rakdos returns. And then if you ever get to a point where you can hit your sixth untapped lands and then cast Supreme Verdict with negate up for the Golgari Charm, that's going to be a backbreaking play as well.
Well, at least one Caryatid was left in. Chris on turn 2 made Sylvan Caryatid. Keith passed back with the Temple, still leaving up that negate, nothing else. See how much VanMeter wants to commit to the board. He does have a Rakdos' return in hand. He could try to return for 3. That would certainly get hit by negate. Or he may wait and see if Keith goes for something like Jace next turn.
Yeah, we see his means of developing his board here are not great. He can add another Caryatid. That's not really developing his board at this point. He can cast Scavenging Ooze, which is not at its best with an empty graveyard.
Yeah.
Now, he does have the Stormbreath Dragon, so he can jam that, but he has to worry about jamming his best card into Supreme Verdict. So that's an issue as well.
Then the Supreme Verdict would remove his best card and both his mana creatures.
So if say he makes that play, he plays Stormbreath, attacks. Keith then plays his land, Supreme Verdicts. Even if Chris finds his 4th land, which he doesn't currently have, he can only Rakdos return then for 2. So that does not seem like a solid line. He's just going to use his Rakdos return, I think, here as a sort of test spell, although what he's drawing out is not actually an answer to the Stormbreath anyway.
Yeah, so he went for Rakdos return for 3. It got negated. At least now he can see if there's a Supreme Verdict. And it's possible that even if, we've seen before, even if Keith has the Supreme Verdict, he's likely not playing it here. We've seen him exercise a lot of patience on Supreme Verdict style cards.
Oh, yeah. I joked that I would have been happy to trade Supreme Verdict for like 2 Elvish Mystics and a Scavenging Ooze. Maybe that's a little greedy on my part, but I'm not scared of this board. I see no reason to Verdict here.
Draw for the turn was Gore-Clan Rampager for Chris VanMeter.
So we know he kept in at least one of those as well. And honestly, I could imagine some diversity in threats there. I could see boarding out 2 of a couple things.
Sure. I mean, some number of Gore-Clans and Pelucranos. I can't imagine he still, for example, has all 7 4-drops, but which ones he boarded out? Unsure. He does go for Stormbreath Dragon here. There is no counterspell in Keith's hand, so it's going to resolve.
All right. And now he has to decide if he wants to play around Celestial Flare. That's the next step. It's like, beat counters, good. Now he has to beat both Celestial Flare and Supreme Verdict.
So, all right, here's my thinking on VanMeter's side. My opponent didn't keep a hand with no removal spells. So what are the removal spells? They could be Azorius Charm, Supreme Verdict, Celestial Flare, and Detention Sphere Banishing Light.
Yep.
Well, if it's Charm or Sphere Banishing Light, then Stormbreath should be attacking. If it's Flare, he shouldn't be. If it's Verdict, he should be, but...
You probably shouldn't have casted the dragon in the first place.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have cast the dragon in the first place.
Okay. So basically your thinking is that it's only correct to cast Stormbreath and not attack with it if you are putting Keith on exactly Celestial Flare.
Yeah, and it's not like things get too much better, right? Because to let Stormbreath attack this turn, you have to swing an Elvish Mystic into a Mutavault.
And actually, you can still answer the Stormbreath that way.
Right, this doesn't play around Celestial Flare.
Right. And, Keith could block with Mutavault and then in the end of combat step use Celestial Flare to get rid of Stormbreath Dragon.
I think we may see just that. There is a Celestial Flare. Keith shuffles to the front of his hand. Keith set up really well here. He has Detention Sphere, Banishing Light, Celestial Flare, 6th land, and Elspeth Sun's Champion right now.
Yeah, that's a reasonable spot. Now, we mentioned that line of block and then end of combat. Celestial Flare, the Gore-Clan Rampager, and there we see it, is going to muddy that plan a little bit. Keith still gets the 2-for-1, as it were, with Celestial Flare.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough decision.
Yeah. Hey, is it really, though? I mean...
You have to keep the dragon?
Yeah, I think you have to keep the dragon.
Well, there is advantage to getting rid of this Mutavault, especially if you're worried about something like Elspeth. It is a mana source you're protecting. You're saving one of your lands and blowing up one of your opponent's lands by sacking the dragon here.
That is true. Although, well, you're not actually. Okay, yes, you're getting that value. You're dealing with the land. You're holding off Elspeth, but I don't think Chris actually cares about Elspeth here, because he still has the 2 mana up for Golgari Charm.
Right.
So he can regenerate from Elspeth's downtick,
and then go ahead and attack her back.
Yes.
And with that pro-white that Stormbreath Dragon has, if Chris goes on that line, He's kind of just hoping that Storm Breath will carry him the whole way.
I don't think that's an unreasonable hope, honestly.
I think it works right now. And yeah, Elspeth tries to reprisal the dragon. He's regenerated with Golgari Charm. And yeah, exactly. You mentioned the remainder of the cards in Keith's hand are Banishing Light, Detention Sphere.
There's a Xenagos, so that is going to knock off the Elspeth and still allow Chris to get some damage in at Keith. And more importantly, it also provides attackers to back up the Storm Breath, so he doesn't have to worry about follow-up Celestial Flares.
Right, and this is pretty big for Keith. We see an Archangel of Thune, a very timely draw for him there. If he has a 7th land, he could have Flare Archangel. I don't believe he does. It'd have to be a white land as well.
Yeah, and he's just going to jam Archangel, hope it's good enough. It frequently is, here is the thing. Yeah, now we're in a spot where does CVM have an actual answer to this card?
No.
And it doesn't look like he does. So now what does he do? You know, if he just attacks with Storm Breath, he loses that race.
Well, he can. I'm not sure. So he has a land he just drew here. If he plays the land, shocks for it, pluses the Xenagos, he can monstrous the Storm Breath Dragon right now. And then I'm no longer convinced he loses the race there. I'm not sure the number of cards in Keith's hand, but it's possible the Storm Breath's lethal at that point.
That is true. So that's a concern. So if he does that, the Storm Breath, of course, is 7. And
if there's 5 cards in Keith's hand, he has to chump.
Okay, yes.
I don't know if he has 5.
I believe Keith has 4.
Okay, so Keith could go to 1.
Yes.
All right. We'll see if he goes for that play. I don't believe he's going to.
He's still,
now he cannot.
Sure he could. Yeah.
That taps.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's going to play Scavenging Ooze. Use that ability, Monster Storm Breath Dragon.
And we'll see how many cards he actually has in hand. 1, 2, 3. I think it is 4. Maybe 3, actually.
Yep, so 4 mana off Xenagos, 2 off the lands, 1 off the Caryatid.
Okay, and it was 3.
It was 3, so Keith...
So an extra life's worth of breathing room, which is certainly relevant.
Goes to 9, then goes to 2.
Yeah. And it's Revelation. Okay. So now Keith can gain life from the Revelation, which grows the Archangel, so that the Archangel actually gains more life. So without making a land drop, he could gain 3, go to 5. The Archangel becomes a 4/5, can then attack the Xenagos, kill it, and go to 9.
And he's dead on the swing.
And then he's still dead, yeah. Okay. So that won't work. He does have removal spells in addition to that, so...
Well, but he doesn't have a way to stop the Storm Breath. Storm Breath's pro-white.
True. So he cannot remove the Storm Breath.
And he cannot block the Storm Breath.
So he has to...
He doesn't have a play.
Yeah. What he needed to somehow get above 7 life, which is not really that hard with an Archangel in play. And then also deal with the non-Storm Breath threats that were in play.
Right.
I think if he made it through that turn, I'm not sure. Yeah,
he was 3 life short. If he can swing, if he was more than 3 life short, because he needed a removal spell for the Satyr, the Ooze, and the Xenagos.
True. Yeah, there probably just weren't a sequence of cards. I don't think you can name 3